Beautiful roses have seed of thorn to defend the plant, harming you only if you steal their blooms. Hello my fellow YouTuber, good morning. This is Marcelina at CashewGreens.com. So in today's video, we're going to be learning how to grow and propagate rose cuttings fast and easy. But before we dive in, if this is the first time you discover my gardening channel, consider to like this video, share to all your friends, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. So let's get started and see you in the other side. Rose propagation by stem cuttings has basic requirements for you to follow. Following these requirements will help you root the cuttings successfully. Now, what are these requirements? Here on this video, I'm going to explain it to you guys, some of the requirements on how to propagate roses from cuttings so you can follow these methods when you do your propagation. Keep in mind, English is not my primary language, guys, so if I don't pronounce the word properly or you don't understand what I'm talking about, so just please bear with me. I will explain the materials as much as possible in the best of my knowledge so you can understand me, so stay close. Now, what are these requirements? Number one is taking cuttings from the branch that the flower has finished blooming, like what you see here. This is done, so it is best to take the cuttings from this branch. Now, the second requirement is taking the cuttings that the stem is close to the size of a pencil. Now, if this is the size of the pencil, so it must be close to that size. If you take cuttings from a large skein, the rooting takes longer to take place because it is large and it takes a lot of energy to work on that space. So the bigger as a pencil is best. Now, you might hear people saying like, well, timing is not really as much as important. Yes, it is. Timing is important if you want to successfully root majority of your cuttings. So when is the time to take cuttings? This is the question that I received from some of my viewers. They said, Marcelina, when is the time to take cuttings for your roses? Well, the best time to take cuttings is in the morning, and I will explain it here why. So when you take cuttings in the morning, the hormone, natural hormones of the plants, it's high in concentration, so that is best. Also, it is fresh. They have more time during the night. They are relaxed, and then they are not working so hard when they are preparing themselves during when the sun is hot. So that's why the morning is best. Most large grower, when they take the cuttings during in the afternoon or the hot sunny days, they bring buckets of ice water and then place their cuttings directly or right away into the buckets to keep that stem fresh and also to preserve the water that is lost during the cut. Now, what is the best season to take your cuttings? So you can take cuttings in spring, summer, fall, and winter. If you have a greenhouse like myself, I have a greenhouse, so I have no, I can take cuttings during most of the seasons. So I can take cuttings spring, summer, fall, and winter. If you are going to propagate roses in spring, take your cuttings in late spring because there is a high concentration of hormones. So most cuttings that you propagate on that during that month is the sapwood cuttings. So this is the sapwood cuttings. See, it is soft, it is flexible, and it's a little bit green in here. So this is the sapwood cuttings that is best to take and propagate during the spring. Now, the propagation site that is suitable to this kind of propagation is the misting system or the fog panics. Majority of the large rose growers use the fog system. The fog system is very suitable in propagating the sapwood cuttings because the water is delivered through the fogs, and we call that the atomization. Now, atomization refers to the breaking of the large amount of liquid into a fine small droplets. So that is the atomization. Now, since the sapwood cuttings tend to wilt easily, this is also tend to root faster. So the fog panics is best when you propagate this one because it gives that water supply, constant supply to these cuttings so that they don't wilt. Now, if you propagate in summer, the best to take cuttings in summer is in early summer. So cuttings must be in the semi-hardwood. So this is the semi-hardwood cuttings. You can see it's harder, it's greener, and then you can still bend. It is flexible. So this is the best to root the cuttings as opposed to the softwood cuttings, and they can easily withstand the environment during the propagation. Now, you can also propagate the hardwood cuttings. I normally don't use the hardwood cuttings, but the hardwood cuttings eventually root. This is the hardwood cuttings. It's hard to bend, so this is hardwood, and you can root this eventually, but it takes longer to grow. Now, during seasonal, if you propagate the roses during the winter season, you can still root the cuttings, but it takes longer because they are less active during that time. Now we know our propagation. Now, removing the thorn. You might hear that removing the thorn increase the rooting system. Now, if you take the cuttings in here, I normally don't. I have to find the thing in here. I don't remove the thorn because the thorn is designed for the plants as a protection, because the fungus hang in this tip of the thorn, so the thorn protects the plants against fungus. If you remove this, you are just introducing the fungus to get into that one. So avoid to minimize the injury. So what I do is just take the tip of the thorn without harming, without causing any opening in here. You already injured the plants from cutting, so it eventually rot. So if you remove here, and then don't you might think that removing this thorn would produce roots. Basically no, because roses tend to root in the node. It doesn't root in the internode. So this is the internode, the size in here, and this is the node. So the root eventually just established in this site, not in this site, not in the internode. So if you remove the thorn in here, doesn't affect the development of the roots. Now when you remove, okay, so the size of how long is the cuttings should you cut. Now my partner in here, we have different opinions based on how long is to take cuttings. There are two set length of how you cut your roses, 4 to 6 inches and 6 to 8 inches. And my partner wants to cut the rose the 8 to 12 inches because he believes that when you take cuttings that long, it's windy guys, and my tripod here is always falling down. Okay, so that would help. All right. So if you take cuttings longer like this, so for him, if he takes cutting this long, when it starts to rot, then he has a good establishment of the plant. So it's already long. So it's not the same as when you cut it short, then it takes longer to develop, into its potential. Now here's the thing why I don't cut the 8 cuttings longer, and I will explain you it in here. So if this is the cuttings, this is the short cuttings that I prepare, and I don't prepare this because if you cut it shorter, it is easy for energy, it is faster for the energy to travel from this site all the way to the working site. So there is no delay, so it is easy for the energy to travel. If you cut this long, it takes a little bit longer of delays of the energy to travel from this area here, from the node all the way down there to the working site. So that's the reason why I don't use the length 8 inches long. Okay, so now when you take cuttings, one of my friends asked me like, why did you cut the leaves like that? So I moved, so you have to remove the lower part, the lower leaves, remove that. and remove that thing and remove this side, and you can leave 2 leaves. Here you go again, the wind, guys. So I cut the leaves in here, and I cut this one here, and I just leave that. Sometimes I strip all the way, but I can also use the leaves. Now there are 2 reasons why you keep the leaves in here. So my friend said, why did you cut the leaves? Just let it be. I don't need that much leaves, so I just need a little bit leaves. So the purpose of these leaves to keep it in here, first reason is that you are not losing the moisture totally. So you still have to keep the moisture in these leaves. The second reason, there is a little bud in here. Can you see that? This is the little bud. They are depending with these leaves. So this produce food and energy feeding to that shoot. Does it make sense? Okay, so that's why you keep the leaves. Now eventually, if the environment of the site of propagation is not doesn't have proper moisture, these leaves will die off eventually. But if you keep the moisture intact in that environment, this one would stay longer. And I'm going to follow up with you guys the propagation after I'm showing you here. Okay, so what would be the next important materials that I'm going to share with you? Now, the cuttings. Always apply basic hygiene. It's almost like when you take a bath, you have to scrub everything so that you remove all those bacteria. It's the same thing when you take cuttings. So water the plants first before you even start taking the cut. And then after you water them, you take the cuttings. Now when you take the cuttings, you have to spray alcohol to the cut from the parent. And then here, when you take cuttings, that's what happens. If you cut this like that, this area here turns black. So that would be cause an infection because it's open. Those black would radiate inside it and all the way to this working site. Now once the infection get into that site, it turns black, and then the whole stem turns black and it dies. So it's a number of game. It's a win-win process. You cannot expect all the cuttings to rot. There is no 100% of the cuttings to eventually rot. And if you can rot majority in a higher percentage rate, because you've done something that is great. So that's the thing. So, but there are a few reasons why your cuttings did not survive, why it turns black, because of what is in that propagation site, maybe building up moisture, or maybe too much water settled on that site, and then the more water in the stem, there is a tendency of rotting the stem and turn black. So that's another reason. But other than that, the infection is causing it. So how do you do that? You have to spray. Where's my spray? So I always, this is my life in here, to have my alcohol then. So when you propagate the roses, after you cut, is spray that site. Here you go. You already disinfect that site. So this one, the alcohol, protect that area from being infected. Now you take the cuttings in a 45 degrees, so the water doesn't lose too much, the moisture doesn't lose too much, and then when you stick it, it has a ability to absorb water when you water them. Now stripping, so almost like when you do the air layering. So when you do this, remove the cambium in that area, where close to that area, but not too close, because you end up damaging the bud. So just like a quarter of an inch. So you strip that out, and then behind it, you strip it out, take out that cambium, and here you go. The use of hormones. Now, rooting hormones play the role in rooting those cuttings. If you are using the synthetic hormones, this will speed up the rooting process. I use the CLONEX gel over the powder, and I'm going to give you the reason why. So I'm going to show you the cuttings here. If I use the CLONEX gel, you can see the gel coat or sealed the wound. So by sealing the wound, any possible pathogens has a hard time getting in to infect the wound. So it prevents infection. Now the other thing that I love about the CLONEX gel, it stays there in the cuttings and it doesn't remove or wash off easily when you water the cuttings. If you use the powder can easily be washed off during the watering, and also when you stick the cuttings in the soil media, most of this powder will come off. So I stick with the CLONEX gel. So let's go ahead and stick our cuttings. We're going to use the propagation site using the mini greenhouse. Okay, so we're going to stick our cuttings in the mini greenhouse. Alright, now when you take your cuttings, I use the media in here. I'm going to give you another extra information in here using the soil media. If you're using the vermiculite, make sure that you just use a little bit of vermiculite, because vermiculite retains moisture. You don't want to build up too much moisture in your site of propagation. So use 3:1 ratio, so 1 part ratio of vermiculite and then 1 ratio with the cocoa fiber and then the perlite. So when you stick your cuttings using the pencil or your finger, you dip a hole. Now when you insert the cuttings, I normally buried half of my cuttings. So I will stick that the first node and then the second node. So I have to put that all the way down and then cover it. And then the reason for that, when you buried half of the cuttings, it keeps that moisture in the cuttings, so it doesn't lose too much moisture. So here, use 4-inch distance, because when they start rotting, they don't tangle to each other. So after you stick this cutting, you water them. Okay, water your cuttings. Soak the soilless media. Okay, now after you water them, you label the cuttings. So this is Dr. Huey. I am going to propagate the Dr. Huey because I'm going to use this as my rootstock, and I'm going to do the grafting using this rose. So after you put your cuttings in the propagator, you have to label them. So I'm just showing you guys, but actually I'm going to label this one, all of the cuttings. I will finish the whole entire box. So just to save time, or to take the video a little bit shorter, so I just show you how to stick your cuttings. So label them. I put Dr. Huey and 729. Then after you are done labeling them, you place back your dome. Now here's the thing, there is an opening window in here. So 1 week of propagation, you close the vent. You want that moisture building that moisture so that they can start callousing. Now if you are forgetful, sometimes it's easy to forget. I would, if you forget, if you forget your propagation, you forget 1 week later to open the vent, then it is best that you just open it, stay there, open it wide. They can still get moisture, but most of the moisture would be escaping on that opening. That's only if you forget to open the following week. Alright. Alright guys, it's getting a little bit dark in here now. So you see this, guys, this is the rose that my partner was propagating. And as you can see, look at that. I cannot reach this box. I want to see if it is rotting. It's rotting. So if you can see, that's hard. So he is happy because it's already a fully established rose. Now let's check the rows that we propagate. Let's follow up this propagation. All right, so this is the propagation, and we will check if it is rooting. So this is a week and a half. So let's see. It seems like it's rooting. You can see that, guys, it stay green because of the site of the propagation. It has a perfect moisture. The moisture is controlled in the site, and also it is always moist, so the cuttings is not rotting. So that's a good sign. See that color in there? It is green, so there is no sign of yellowing or any sign of black the stem. So let's try to pull this. Let's see. This is 1 week and a half. Let's see. Okay, it's just callousing, so it's not rotting yet. So we will check back again, and let's check the other propagator that was 2 weeks and a half. Okay, so you see that, guys, it's really watered. This is the moisture, the effect of the moisture. It's smoking in here. So this is 2 weeks and a half. Okay, let's take this out. All right, so you see that it stays green because they have a perfect moisture. And let's pull this one. This is 2 weeks and a half. It seems like it's rotting. Okay, how about this one here? We'll try. Okay, they're very sensitive, so I had to grab this and see if it roots. You see that? See, it's rooting. It's rooting, guys. This is 2 weeks and a half. So how about the other one in here? Okay, let's see. Oh, look at that, guys. It's rooting. So the propagation site is one of the important in propagation that you can be successful. So all of this is rooting, I believe. Let's check again in here. Oh, look at that, guys. Look at that. How about this one here? Take this out in here. Okay. Ooh, another one. Look at that. So all this propagation here, it's rooting. Here, oh, it's stick on the ground. It's stick to the bottom. Let's pull it. Oh, look at that. This is the fun thing. Look at that, guys. Wow, it's rooting. So we're going to transplant this, okay? So our propagation is still not rooting, is callousing within 1 week. That is 1 week checkup. Then I will follow up you again in the following week. So by 2 weeks and a half, it should be rooting. Okay, so we're going to transfer or transplant our rows. So use this banded pot, and then use the soil mix, 50% cocoa fiber and 50% perlites. But what we're using here in the soil, this is Happy Frog, and I use the Happy Frog because it has this soft texture. It has a good drainage, and also it contains mycorrhizae, which is a beneficial fungus that also protecting the root against pathogen. So fill your pot half inch, and then with the mycoplast here, you take 1 pinch. Again, you can mix it with water, or you can apply it directly to the root. Then you put that on the root, around it. This one would help the root system to protect the roots against pathogen. All right, then fill the pot with soil. Then label the cuttings so you know what cuttings you just planted, and then water the cuttings. So the mycoplast here, it has a little bit of nutrients. You can see it has 303, so 3% nitrogen and then 3% of potassium. So this one would help as a starter. Okay, then you have to water it. You can water directly to the stem, or you can water below if you put this one in the tray. So make sure that it has a good drainage. So this is perfect for cuttings because at the bottom they have a nice hole and it is very good in aeration. Okay, so that's how you transplant your cutting. Alright guys, so I really want to show you guys his propagation. He wants to propagate the rose with a 12-inch long, 8 to 12-inch long, because as you can see the rose is already established, and I'm so curious. I just want to show you guys, so let's go ahead and take this rose, okay? Alright guys, I'm going to show you. So here you go. This is his propagation, and let's see. Look at that, it's already long and it's already blooming. Can you believe that?
These were florist roses.
Florist roses.
These weren't from the garden. These were the roses you get in a bouquet that you give to your girlfriend or your wife.
Oh man.
And I stuck these in here and they've already bloomed.
Oh man. Holy moly. Oh my gosh, look at that guys. Look at that. Oh my goodness. So see, you can, that is his preferences, to have a cuttings that is long, 8 to 12 inches. So he has a full grown rose. So thank you guys. So I think this is it. And thank you for watching the video. So if you haven't subscribed guys, subscribe the video if you like the video. Also don't forget to share to all your friends. So see you next week. Adios.